Hey everybody, this is David coming to you today from Halong Bay in northern Vietnam. This is about, I don't know, 3 hours or so outside of Hanoi. And you'll see these big limestone formations coming up out of the water. There are probably 1,000 of them here. Perhaps you've seen pictures of these, or maybe you've seen them in the James Bond movies or different things like that. But coming in here today and seeing the captain just navigate these places right out of the water is really a sight to see. And so I'm just sitting out on the deck today. We couldn't go into port because the ship is way too big for that, so we had to tender out here. But I thought what I would do is just give you an update on Lesson 1, a recap on Lesson 1, and then a preview for Lesson 2 coming up over the next few days. So again, I appreciate all the focus and attention you placed in Lesson 1. I appreciate the discussion board introductions that you have. Those are very important, as I mentioned before, for me, because it helps me get to know you a little bit better and hopefully be able to apply some of my responses to your questions, your comments, in a much more appropriate way going forward. And also it helps your fellow students get to know you a little bit better as well. So let's talk a little bit about Lesson 1. Lesson 1 started with a concept that is on the tips of many businesses' tongues today, and that is corporate social responsibility. And for those of you who did some external research on that, bully for you, because there is a whole lot of information out there on the internet and different sources today on corporate social responsibility. And really what the whole concept behind that is that corporations have a responsibility to the world. They have a responsibility to the world to do more than just simply make money for their shareholders, but they have a responsibility to do so in a way that is friendly to their employees, that's friendly to the environment, and that's friendly to future generations. And so that's a big darn deal today. And you see companies like Whole Foods, the CEO of Whole Foods is well quoted on this. You see also different concepts. I teach a course in servant leadership in the master's degree program that talks about this from the aspect of what's called the triple bottom line. And so that's focusing not only on the financial aspect of it, but focusing on the employee aspect as well as the economic aspect and other elements of that, as well as the consumer and the customer and all of those pieces. And so CSR is an incredibly important concept that if you haven't heard much about it, you'll continue to hear more about it in the future. And as managers, we need to make sure that we're looking at those things going forward. Assignment 1 was really the first part of your course project. And so we just wanted to recap that. In the first part of your course project, remember you're going to be submitting these. These are going to be added to each other each week. So when you submit the information for part 2, it just follows right in behind part 1. It's not a separate paper. You don't highlight it part 2. It just goes from a smaller paper to a much larger paper over the 7 weeks of the course. And so just make sure that you do it that way and not do it as independent papers. So in the first part of this course project, remember what you're doing is you're building a management training program for a company that you've chosen. And in order to have an effective management training program, regardless of what this particular person will be managing, whether they're a logistics manager or a marketing manager or a manager of research and development or a human resource manager, they need to have a broad understanding of the company. And so while they may have specifics or a specialization, if you will, inside of that company, as a future senior manager of that company, they need to have a much broader general understanding of the different aspects that make that company who they are. And so that's the purpose of doing this. And the other purpose is to really give you an opportunity to take all of the business concepts that you've learned in the BSOM program over the past few months, years, and bring them all together in one global paper. And I've chosen to do that as a management training program. And so this first week in Lesson 1, All I really wanted you to do was to select the company and give a little bit about that company's background. What are their mission and their goals? The reason that I want you to have mission and goals is because the mission and goals of the company should drive all the other characteristics of the company, and it should drive the marketing, it should drive the understanding of the financial elements, and so on and so on and so on. And so hopefully you'll be able to, over the course of this, tie back to those mission and goals with each particular edition that you have each week. And then the one element that some of you missed this week is, why is this important? Why is it important for a new general manager for a particular department coming into the company? Why is it important for them to have, again, this global understanding? I talked a little bit about that a couple seconds ago, but make sure that you include that in your paper, because if you're going into a training program, think about this. If you've gone, and many of you have been in a one-day training or something like that, if the leader of that organization or the leader of that training didn't explain to you why this is important to you, then chances are you may just let it fly by, or it may just be a one-day, I don't have to work this week, or I don't have to work this day. And so making sure that people understand why something is important to them is very critical to retention of those ideas. And so make sure, if you didn't include that in your first paper, that you include a section of that going forward. So that was, in essence, lesson 1. Let's talk a bit about lesson 2 that you're going to have in this upcoming week. Lesson 2 really talks about external analysis and competitive intelligence. And so the discussion question talks about the importance of competitive intelligence, but how do you make sure that you don't go too far in doing things? And it's really kind of an ethical question from that perspective. Now, when I was at Conagra, we were I actually put together for our sales organization a competitive war room where I had people assigned to particular tasks, and I expected them to be experts on our competitors. And so not only did they have to be experts on what we were doing as an organization, but they needed to be an expert on what Stouffer's was doing, what Nestle was doing, and other competitors that we had. Very, very important. Competitive intelligence today is really a lifeblood on how do you respond to those types of threats. How do you make sure that you're ahead of the competition when it comes to concepts, to ideas? And so that level of importance, though, is balanced by, how do you make sure you don't go too far? How do you make sure that you're not doing things that are illegal? And so in that particular question, I want you to be very specific. Examples would be wonderful on this one. And so just don't give me general things of, we have to make sure that we are ethical in the way that we handle our competitive information. Right, great, we all understand that. But be very specific. Provide some examples, perhaps, maybe even of the company or the organization that you work for. So that's discussion 2.1. Assignment 2.1 talks about different analysis techniques. Now, as you're building some of the ideas for your course project, as you begin to look at external analysis, you'll understand SWOT. Many of you understand SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, which are internal analysis; opportunities and threats, which are external analysis, and the different techniques that are used there. Michael Porter, you'll see his information in there. Michael Porter is sort of the chief guru, if you will, on strategy and business strategy. I teach a lot of his concepts in the master's program that we have here at CSU as well. So make sure that you're very specific about those, and perhaps, again, provide some examples as you write your papers. Again, remember, every single paper that you write for me needs to have a cover page, an introduction section with an introduction heading, body headings throughout the paper, a conclusion section with a conclusion heading, and a references section for the outside resources that you've used. Now, these need to be written in APA. We have an APA ebook that is provided there, so make sure that you use that to look at how to properly format those. Also, I've provided some sample APA papers and some sample work as it relates to headings, some sample citation things that I've placed in the doc sharing as well. So make sure that you just don't dump those on the paper. I've given you some things to take a look at in those areas. And then assignment 2.2 is the continuation of your course project. And so it'll be the second portion. You'll have your first portion that you did lesson 1. Make sure, by the way, that you look at the comments that I made on in the gradebook on assignment 1.1 for your course project. You can make those corrections. So make those corrections before you submit the second section of that, because again, that's one of the benefits here. If you make sure you continue to correct it with my suggestions, then your grade's going to get better, to be real honest with you. And so assignment 2.2 is about the economic impact or the economic ideas in your course project. And this will rely on the micro and macroeconomics classes that you had maybe a long time ago. But understand on this one, what I'm really looking for on this particular business are the internal and external factors that impact this particular business. Now, those economic impacts could be governmental regulations, it could be the economy, it could be technology, it could be social changes, it could be cultural swings and cultural issues that are that you want to bring forward. So don't give me the definition of macroeconomics or microeconomics, because that really doesn't apply here. What really applies here is, for example, right now, if you were in the oil and gas industry, the oil and gas markets with the price of oil being depressed has you concerned. I mean, it's a threat that you will see. If you do a SWOT analysis from an external analysis perspective, it is a threat. And so what do you do? What do you recommend? What are the different things that you see as it relates to that company with those types of economic issues that are looming? Think about governmental regulation. If you were in the healthcare business right now with the new Affordable Care Act and those types of things, what impact does governmental regulations, which are economic, have on the overall performance of that company? So those are the things that I really want you to take a look at as it relates to the economic portion of this training program. So think about it this way. If you were a brand new manager coming into work for Trident Healthcare, if that's the company you've picked, for example, and maybe they're just the general manager of logistics to make sure that they get food, supplies, and everything else in, they need to have an understanding of how the economic impacts of the healthcare model impact the company, because they have a small piece of making sure that those things work together. So just make sure that you tie all of those things in. All right? Again, hope you had a great week. I am incredibly accessible. Actually, the satellite internet connection here on the ship has been fantastic. I was really surprised. I was a little concerned as we were floating around the South China Sea that I would lose contact and communication, but it hasn't happened. So if you have any questions or comments, make sure that you email those to me, and we will make sure that we stay in touch. So have a great week. Look forward to your comments in Lesson 2. Any questions from the gradebook in Lesson 1, make sure, by the way, that you look at all of my comments. I do those in the gradebook. I attach those to lessons. I attach those to the dialogue box there in the discussion section of the gradebook. So that's how we will communicate on your grades going forward. All right? Have a great week. Keep studying. Talk to you soon.